we had a show in Paris in the biggest record store, and the store was packed, I think, with maybe 1,000 people.
Hey, Stephen, how's it going?
Hi, I just have to... It's just an audio interview. Hi, Brendan.
Yeah, just audio, just for radio.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm fine.
Fantastic. So when I do these, I like to start at the beginning of you as a musician and then work our way up to the new record. So looking back, where did you grow up and how did you get started in music?
Oh, I grew up in a very small town near Kaiserslautern. Maybe you know Kaiserslautern or especially Rammstein, because in Rammstein is a very big USA airbase.
Oh, really?
You don't know Rammstein airbase?
I've heard of it, yeah. I mean, obviously, I know. I hear Rammstein, I'm thinking of the band.
yeah. Rammstein, it's named because of this town. It's the biggest USA airport outside the USA in Europe. So I grew up. We have there a lot of Americans in this area, Kaiserslautern, Rammstein, where I grew up. Yeah, it's a very small town. It was like a bit more than 1,000 inhabitants. And I came to music somehow because my brother Andreas started playing drums. So I was getting interested in music. And then I saw a picture of Angus Young, and that's how it started.
So just saw the picture of him doing the hop or whatever, eh? And that sold you.
When I saw the pic of the High Voltage LP that day, and I saw who's this crazy guy with this crazy guitar. And I bought this CD. It was painted on the cover, and the LP was scratched. And I bought it for like $2. And then I heard the first riff like TNT, and I thought, what's that? And that was how I was coming into rock music.
Just that simple, eh? Like so many people, Angus Young.
Yeah, that's it.
Besides AC/DC, who are some early influences for you?
The deepest influence was for sure at the beginning AC/DC and Angus Young. And then by coincidence, I was in a big supermarket like every Thursday. I was when I was a kid. I was driving with my mom in a big supermarket because there was a place where they sold LPs. And I was, like young kids, if school is out and you don't know what to do, you spend your time in a bigger supermarket and looking what kind of toys there are and sweets and all these things. And then I was getting into this area where they sold LPs. And then I saw an LP with a crazy creature on the cover. And a creature who just murdered somebody, and it was Iron Maiden Killers.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I was a young kid, I was like, I don't know, I remember maybe 12, something like that. And the guy who sells the LPs, I took the LP and I looked at it, and he was coming and said, hey, a young guy, what kind of music do you have here? And I said, I have no idea. I just look at the cover. And he said, oh, let's hear what you choose. And he was going to the stereo and put the LP on the stereo, and he put up the volume. And then I think the first song was The Ides of March, if I remember right. And then it was coming Wrathchild, and he was looking at me because it was so loud that everybody was looking at me with the cover in my hands. And he gave me back the LP, and he said, oh, that's nothing for me. It's nothing for the audience here in the supermarket. And I said, but it's so cool. I will buy it. And so my second LP, what I got when I was a young kid, was Killers from Iron Maiden. And so I was a huge fan from Iron Maiden, and later on for sure Whitesnake, all these bands which were famous in this time. And then we had a German band called Accept. Maybe you know these.
Accept are one of my favorite bands, of course.
Absolutely. I was a big fan from Accept, and they played in our area where I lived some concerts. And every time they played in a venue, we were driving there to see the concerts. And yeah, that was how it was starting. I was a big fan of all these bands. Judas Priest, all these Twisted Sister. I can remember when I was a young guy, we had a big festival where all my favorite bands were playing. I was 14 maybe, and I was just allowed to go there because my parents said he can go to the concert, but my older brother has to take care of me because I was just 14 years old. And there was playing, I can remember it was Twisted Sister and Motorhead and Saxon and Meatloaf and Blue Oyster Cult and Whitesnake and Thin Lizzy with John Sykes, which is one of my absolute favorite guitar players.
Oh, and I love him. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Thin Lizzy. I take it you're a big Blue Murder fan too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And if you're 14 years old, like a skinny young guy standing in the middle, in front of the stage, looking to John Sykes, and I can still remember. Normally, it was not allowed to go to a concert like that if you are that young. It was just because, as I said, my brother was taking care of me, and I was standing like 5 meters in front of the stage, and it was Thin Lizzy. I think it was one of the last or the second last concert of Thin Lizzy. It was in 1983, and it was with Scott Gorham dressed in black with a white Les Paul, and John Sykes dressed in white with a black Les Paul. So incredible. I never forget that.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's one band I always wish I could have seen is Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So you got started. Now, how do you get started? You said your brother played drums. Was it just kind of like, you were like, well, he plays drums, I want to play with him kind of thing? Like, how do you get started playing guitar?
No, it's hard. I'm so old, and it's so long ago. In German, we have a kind of singers, which is kind of traditional music, folk music. And when I was a very young kid, like 6 years, I was imitating. And, because he was well known he has very blonde hair, and he took always sunglasses and played an acoustic guitar, and he played all this traditional German stuff. And I was imitating him when I was 6 years old. But even I was only 6, I already had a kind of toy guitar, just with 4 strings, and it doesn't sound like a guitar. It was just for kids. And even I was only 6, I was playing guitar with this toy guitar, which was out of plastic and all these things. But I did not think about playing guitar when I was 6 years. But later on, I don't know why it was guitar. Somehow it's hard to describe why it happened. When my brother was playing drums, he had a catalog with music instruments, and I was looking at it, and like kids are, I saw guitar, and I can remember it was a black Les Paul, but originally, I think at these days, 2,500 German marks, which was a fortune, And I was going like a kid. When I was 10 or 11, I was going to my mom and dad, and I said, I want to play guitar, and I choose this guitar. And my parents said, are you crazy? It was like these days, like $3,000 when you are 10 years old. So, and they said, you are crazy. But if you like to learn it, they call it the wooden guitar. The wood guitar, you have to learn a classic guitar, which was much cheaper, like $200, And they said, you can learn it. We buy it for you. You can choose it, and you get lessons. And the only person in the whole area who gave lessons was, it sounds strange, but it was a very old lady. She was, I think, more than 60 years old, and she was not playing real guitar. She was strumming some chords, And we played the most old-fashioned songs ever, but she was very nice, and she was like a grandma, And at these days, I already had my jeans jacket with the patches on the back, like from Killers, Iron Maiden, and like I was a heavy metal kid. And when I was going, I had a big patch from Whitesnake from the album Love Hunter.
Oh, okay. Yep.
You know this cover?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The naked lady riding on the snake.
Yep. She was probably a bit shocked when you walked in with that.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I was walking I wanted to walk through this small town with this jacket to the lady taking guitar lessons. And my mom said, if you go, you don't wear the jacket, because the older lady, she will lose consciousness if she see this patch. So it was a very strange situation, because I was start letting my hair grow. I was listening to Ozzy Osbourne and Dio and all these bands. And I had to take guitar at this place with the old lady. Even she was very, very kind. Someday I was going home to my parents, and I said, okay, I want to learn guitar, but I want to learn guitar from a real guy who knows how to play guitar, but in small towns, who's teaching guitar. So I never had real lessons, to be honest. I had some lessons from some people, like it is in the early days. There's somebody playing in a band. He can show you a riff. Somebody showed me Rockin' All Over the World from Status Quo, That was the kind of climax. And someday I realized the best is I take the LPs, and I take my guitar, and I try to learn the songs by my own ears. So that's how it started. When I was young, there was no internet, and there was no tabs. There was no YouTube, nothing. So the only chance to learn guitar was maybe there was somebody who could teach you. In my case, there wasn't. So the only possibility was take your guitar, listen to the songs, and then you can try to find out how they play it just by learning it, by listening to the music with your own ears. Honestly, even today, I'm glad that it was like that, because the new generation now, they don't play by ear. They just look in the internet and they look how the people play it and they look at it, but they don't really understand what they are doing sometimes.
Yeah, I was raised in the very early internet, so there were some tabs. Sometimes there were, sometimes there weren't, but it blows me away nowadays. Yeah. Like you say, I mean, there's someone on YouTube with a tab right there that literally shows you exactly how to do what they're doing.
So you're a guitar player too?
Yes. Yep. Guitar player, singer. Yeah.
Yeah. So you understand. Then it's much easier to explain. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because if you want to know a song today, the young kids, they look at YouTube. They see, he plays fret 7 and fret 9, and I hit the strings. Okay, it sounds like that, but they have no clue what they are doing. They talk in a language, but they don't understand what they are talking.
Sure.
That's really strange. But it's not the fault of the kids, because it's now this time like it is. Maybe if I would have been grown up today, I would do the same. But the problem is that, in my opinion, a lot of young guitar players, they just learn not how to, they just play, but they don't know exactly what they play and why. And so you don't need to understand music theory. That's not really necessary. But they just play frets. They don't play music. They just play the frets which somebody else shows them. And I can remember when I was getting a little bit older, like 18 years, when you are allowed to drive with a car in Germany, and in the USA it's 16 as far as I know. Mm-hmm. So I took my friend and we were driving like 80 kilometers, like 50 miles, to a music shop who sold VHS tapes to get the tapes of Winnie Moore and George Lynch.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I've seen both of those.
Yeah, and we, we were young guys, and we paid a fortune just for 2 videotapes. Today it's impossible to realize that, because you can have all that for free on YouTube. But in these days, you paid like $50 just for a VHS tape. And if you compare it to the situation how the musicians have possibilities today, it's not comparable at all. Not at all.
Oh, no, not at all. Like you say, I've got a few old tapes myself of stuff like that. And it's, the George Lynch one, I think it was from like 88, 89, something like that. Yeah, I used to have that on tape too, so I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, crazy. But as I said, the time changes and a lot of things change. So I sound like an old person, like you said, the old guy talks like that. So time changes, and it's not the fault of the young generation now. It is like it is. But I'm always happy if I have a student who's coming and said, I write songs of my own, or I listen to that, and I understand why. But it's not common. The most students, they are looking at the music at a different point of view. It's like that. For
sure. Yeah, there was a certain thing, like you say, where you've got to kind of figure it out yourself, and it helps to create a style.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree totally. Sometimes I have the feeling, if I listen to music, it sounds a little bit the same, all the solo stuff. When I see guitar players at YouTube today, it's unbelievable how good they are technical-wise. It's so impressive and crazy. They play sweeps and taps and legato at once with a million notes in the minute. It's not the same if John Sykes plays one chord with a crazy vibrato. If I hear John Sykes or Zakk Wylde, the old guys, and they just hit one note with a good or intense note, you know what I mean? Then it gets me. I get goosebumps. But I don't get goosebumps if I hear a million notes in a minute. That's big.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, well, it's funny because you being from Germany, I'm a massive Uli John Roth fan. Yeah. He said as much too. He's like, speed doesn't impress me. He says what impresses me is feel.
Yeah. I can understand if young people watch these crazy guitar players and it's impressing. Yeah. So for example, even John Petrucci, who is fast as hell, even he is already getting a kind of normal if you compare it to these crazy guys. But if John Petrucci plays a melodic solo, it's much more worth being heard than these crazy licks and this fast stuff, in my opinion. It's like that.
Mm-hmm. I'm very much of the opinion of use speed where it needs to be used. If you're doing a crazy fast song, of course you want to have a fast solo to go with it.
Absolutely.
But there is such
Absolutely.
a thing as completely overplaying your part and losing the feel of the moment or of the song.
Yeah. I mean, hard rock needs guitar and guitar solo and needs fast runs, and everything is okay. So I like to hear if the crazy guitarists make a crazy solo. That's not the point. But if you have a solo from like a minute, there's no need to play 60 seconds fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pick your moment and let the solo breathe and build and develop.
Absolutely. That's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah, but it's not a big complaint. It's just sometimes when I'm at YouTube, a lot of video shows up. This and this guy plays a solo, and I look at it and I say, I'm not able to play 10% of what he's doing, but it doesn't touch me. That's it.
Yeah, it's like you say, it doesn't have that feel. It's not drawing you in. It's like, wow, that's really cool. On to the next. It doesn't touch your soul in that moment.
Yep.
So tell me this. So how do you get started playing in bands? Because the first thing I'm aware of you doing is what you're most well known for is Vanden Plas. Was that your first band?
Yeah. And it was my first band. And yeah, I'm still in the band with All My Shadows. Okay, I have a second now. But the story is, if you would tell this story in a movie, the people would say, maybe it's too much invented a little bit. But the story was to make it, just to try to sum it up. As I was a big fan of music, when I was playing guitar, I was directly into rock music, and I was directly big fan of rock music. And my wish was somehow to play in a band. And even I was not playing in a band, I already started to write my own songs with riffs. Even I have no clue. I started with that. And the thing was, my brother was playing in a band called Exodus. Not the speed metal band, but they had the same name by coincidence.
Of course. Well, back then, how did you know? Being in a small band, you're not going to hear from a band from San Francisco,
Yeah, absolutely. We found it out like 2 or 3 years later when Exodus was getting famous. So, but these days, they were rehearsing in another town, some kilometers away, some miles away, and they had to get out of the rehearsal room. And because my brother was playing the drums, my parents allowed them to rehearse in our basement. So later on, you could say it was maybe a kind of a small mistake, because I don't think if they could imagine how loud it will get if a band plays in your house. But I have to say, not many parents would do that. And they accept these rehearsals for many, many years. If Andreas was playing drums, then you can hear it upstairs that the glasses in the rooms were shaking. You can imagine it was that loud. And they accept it for years. So we have to thank our parents. If they would live, you had to say every day, thank you for that, because not a lot of people or parents would do that. And the thing was, the band was rehearsing in our basement. And since they started, I was almost at every rehearsal as a guest. I was so interested in this band, even it was, it was a small band, but they directly started writing own songs. They weren't perfect musicians, but I was at every rehearsal, totally crazy. It was every time the same. And I was sitting there on the couch and they were playing the songs, and I was able to do that because they were in our house. They played some shows, and then they got a new singer with Andy, and then they changed the name in Vanden Plas. But I was not in a band. I was just the small brother of the drummer. They had a big concert, like a contest, where like in the early days that was kind of common, that there was contests where different bands can show their songs, and the best band get a prize. Something like that,
Battle of the Bands. Yeah.
So, and then just a few days before this concert, the guitar player he had a kind of stage fright, and he didn't show up at the rehearsals, and he said, I don't play the show. And so everybody in the band, the other 3 band members, Andy, my brother, and the bass player, the former bass player, they were totally sad, and they said, we have to play this concert. It's so important. And I was in the room downstairs when they discussed it. And then the former bass player, and he looked at me and he said, Stephan, you know the songs and you can play guitar. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, you play the show. And I said, I'm just 15. I'm not allowed to go anywhere. Because it's not, with 15 years, you're not allowed to play concerts and rock concerts somewhere till late in the night. And he said, but you can play guitar, you know the songs, why not? And my answer was, I have to ask my parents. And then the band and my parents were upstairs in the living room. Andy and my brother, they are like 3 or 5 years older. They were like 20. And they were going in the living room with me. And they explained the situation to my parents. They asked my parents if Stephan can play, if I can play the show. And my parents said, he's just 15 and he's not allowed to go anywhere. And he said, yeah, but we need a guitar player and Stephan can do it. And it's so important. And they said, yeah, he can do it, but I have to be at home like before 12 o'clock. It's so crazy. It was so fun. And then I played with 15 years. I played my first show in front of maybe 1,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. Totally crazy. And then I was in the band with 15 years. And from that day on, I played together with Andy and my brother in Vanden Plas.
So tell me this then. So, when you guys started, your sound was, I almost think of you guys something as like of Pantera, where you started out as sort of like glam, melodic rock kind of thing. And then as you got going, you got heavier. Like, I know the band, you guys did the Going Around in Circles single on B Records. Tell me about this. Did you play on that? Or were you not a part of the band yet?
Oh my God, I didn't know that going round in circles. This is crazy. Really, going round in circles and raining in my heart. Yeah, this was the first single we did. You're totally right. In the beginning, it was like that. We were influenced by this glam rock. Bon Jovi was famous, Europe was famous, and we grew up with Van Halen, Y&T, Toto, and Styx maybe also. Yeah, in the beginning, the music was much more commercial, like melodic rock. In the beginning, we called ourselves, just let me remember, our slogan was the noble way of rock. And we played, are you sitting?
Yeah.
Okay, because our music description was heavy pop.
That's funny.
on our, we have, for the posters, for the concerts, there was Vanden Plas with a picture, and then like a slogan, the noble way of rock. And then under this, it was saying playing heavy pop, because it was not rock music, but it was not pop. So it was not heavy metal and it was not rock. So we called it heavy pop. Can you imagine that? Oh my God. I still have a poster, I think, with that slogan.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And it was totally, if you look at, but the thing is, all the time somehow creative with Vanden Plas. We thought about how to get things done. Yeah, our clothes, what we wear on stage was like everybody were in this time, like David Lee Roth was skinny pants and all this stuff. And it was very, very commercial. We had a lineup change at the end of the 80s. This was the time when Günther and Thorsten joined the band. So we were Andreas, also my brother, and Andy and me. And we had Günther and Thorsten new in the band. And that was the turning point of our music style, because Thorsten was coming from the much more harder side. Even he's not a songwriter, but his influence was like that. And Günther is very much coming from classic music and a big fan of John Lord and Deep Purple. And that was the time when we started to include a bit more technical stuff in the music. So, and with time changes and all these things. So that was the time when we started to create a kind of, let's call it, own style. That was the end of the 80s. And in the beginning of the 90s, it's a longer story, but we got by coincidence to play, we had the chance to play Jesus Christ Superstar at a big theater in a big town in Germany with a big orchestra. So we had to learn to play from the notes from the sheet. So we had a conductor, like you can imagine. It's like in a movie. You have a big conductor. You have like 30 studied musicians all around you. You have a big stage, big rock opera. So, and we played it like more than 60 times in front of 800 or 1,000 people in this big, big, big theater. And that was the turning point where we decided, hey, it's so cool to include classical stuff, to include some technical stuff, to include some different measures and different song parts into rock music. So, and then we had this kind of change in our style. And we were not so sure if this is a good idea. But then Dream Theater was getting famous. And so we were on this kind of, let's call it wave, because we had this kind of elements in our music. And when Dream Theater was getting famous, it was perfect for us because we have started that also, not in that intensity like Dream Theater had, but in smaller versions like that. And that was the time when we changed our style. And we found out that we like to do this kind of music. We didn't thought about making CDs or getting famous or something like that. We just thought that's cool to play this kind of music. And that's how it started.
Mm-hmm. So stepping back in time, just because I'm curious about this, to kind of go back to like 86 or so, when it comes to going around in circles, how did that recording come about? Because you guys were a brand new band at that point, eh?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. That was
that's all
good. Going Round in Circles was at these days, let's say, the most commercial song we had. It was like 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes. It was a bit more upbeat. It had a good chorus, and I'm playing guitar on that for sure on this single. And it was like that. We didn't have money to produce or to release a single, and we had someone near our hometown who believed that much in Vanden Plas. He was a fan, and he said, "We make the single, and I pay the whole single, but I get the back of the single as a kind for making advertisement." He had a lot of pubs around in Kaiserslautern, so he said, we print like 1,000 singles, and I get the back of the single to make advertisement for my pubs, and you got a single what you can sell. So there are only 1,000 singles existing from that Going Round in Circles. And at these days, that was something really, really special. I think nobody else had a single in our hometown or in this area. So because with this single, we were able to go to radio stations and to say, in these days, you needed something in your hands. It's not like today. You needed a product. And so we were able to go to a radio station, or if you want to have a concert, you could say, we have a single. And that was something great, not comparable with today. A single was something really, really special. And to have your face on a single, nobody could imagine that it ever happened. Yeah, we were really proud. And I was at these days when this single was produced, I was still in school. And even my teacher bought singles. They said, Stephan, I heard you play in the band, and I read you have a single. And so they said, I buy your single. It was a very strange feeling because if your teacher buys a single from the music you are playing, that was not common. Not at all. Not at all.
No. And it's so funny, like you say, because people don't have an understanding of what that meant to have a recording of your music back then. I mean, to have a recording was for big bands, like you say, Deep Purple or whatever, right? Like, it wasn't, hey, this is a kid I know up the street in Germany and he's got a recording. It's like, whoa, that was a huge deal back then.
Yeah, absolutely. Before Going Round in Circles, we were going in smaller studios and we made demos. But making a demo is so much different. At these days, making a demo was such a difference between making a demo on a tape, because it was just a tape, a regular tape where somebody was writing down with a regular pen the name of the band and the songs. But having a single, a printed single with a cover and all these things, this was a huge, huge step for Vanden Plas. We were not big rock stars, but you got in the newspaper, you got like a small report and all these things. You haven't got that with a normal demo.
For sure. So after Going Round in Circles, you guys did the Fire EP in 92, which, I mean, you could tell that's where you were starting to turn into the sound you guys had. It was sort of like, I would say somewhere between what you guys became known for and like almost like Europe. Or, one of those kind of bands, right? Like it was sort of like a transition for you guys. So tell me about doing that EP and sort of where you were at the time, like where the band was at.
That's exactly the kind of turning point what I was talking about just some minutes ago. Like we had this ballad, Fire, which was like a common ballad what a lot of bands had these days. I think if we would have been called Skid Row or Bon Jovi or Europe, whatever, with this Fire song. Yeah, I think it would have been a good song on MTV maybe, because it was very commercial and a very good song. I still think it was a very good song. And we had Days of Thunder. And in Days of Thunder, this was the start. In the middle of the song, we had this kind of rhythm part where it was with a 7/8 measure, if I call it like that. So it was the start where we include some technical stuff into a regular rock song. And this was the first time when we did like that. And that was the time when Thorsten and Günther joined the band. Then we wrote these songs, and then we started to this kind of new music, this new style. We recorded it at the Roko sound studio. He was kind of well known these days. The guy, he had his own band, melodic rock band.
No, I don't know if a lot of the listeners are going to know Roko, but I know the band. I actually own their first record.
Oh my God, a lot of things. Cool. Yeah, and a nice guy. And we were at Roko Studio. We did this first demo, Fire EP. And that was the next step. We were the first band around in our area who had a CD. So with a lot of things, we were the first band who did it. For example, we were the first band in the area who had an appearance at a TV station. So we had, for example, we have like smaller TV stations. I think you have the same in the USA. You have the big stations, but you have smaller stations which are famous for the area where you live.
Yeah.
And we had, for example, playback appearances, some in the TV stations. We were the only band who did it. A rock band. You have this normal commercial singers, girls or boys, whatever. And we as a rock band had the opportunity to do that because we were doing demos and these things what we were talking about some minutes ago with the single and all these things. And with the Fire EP, it was the same thing. We were the first band who did a CD in our area. That was again something special. And we were so unexperienced when we did the CD. The guys from the company who printed it were asking for a cover and we didn't have one. So on the first edition, it's just a blue background with our red Vanden Plas logo and with a yellow Fire written on it like it was written with a pen. You have no idea. If you see it today, you ask yourself, how could that happen? You make a CD and you don't have a cover because we were so unexperienced to that. And I think 1 or 2 years later on, we did a second edition where we did a photo of a kind of cross, whatever, I can remember. And we put it on the cover to have something special. If I remember these days, it's so funny because it makes yourself aware how young and how unexperienced we were and how new all this was in the music scene, having a CD and all these things. But still the Fire CD for the fans of Vanden Plas, it's still a very important item. A lot of people like it.
Honestly, it's some of my favorite stuff you guys have done. And that doesn't knock everything else because I'm a huge fan of, go through your discography, But that EP, one of my favorite sounds is sort of German late 80s, early 90s, sort of power metal, hard rock. There were so many bands doing that sound at the time, and it was great. You have stuff like Roko, for example, Fair Warning, Letter X. The bands go on and on and on.
Absolutely. Oh, you know a lot. My God. Crazy that you know that, because these days, just the insiders of the German rock scene did know these bands. So it's hard to believe that you know Letter X. Crazy that you know this band.
Oh, for sure. Crazy. Yeah, well, for me, Letter X is because I'm a big fan, like I said, of Uli and of his brother Zeno. And
Crazy.
From that, it turned into, the guy sang for Zeno and he sang for Letter X. And it's crazy to me, too, how many bands in that scene. It's kind of the world over, is you discover a few people that did this and you look at the liner notes and you go, but they've also worked with them. And then you discover a new band and and they're thanking these bands because they all toured together. And that's how a lot of my knowledge comes from.
It's, as I said, it's really insider knowledge what you got. Crazy. Yeah, and with this sound was a kind of common at these days. A lot of bands sounded like that, and a lot of bands wished they have a CD. And we were, as I said, one of the first bands who had a CD. And then the biggest turning point was our engagement at the theater. I have to say we have two big points in our career. One was the tour with Dream Theater when we supported them in Europe, end of the 90s, which was the best what could ever happen to a band like Vanden Plas. But this same important was the fact that we got the chance to play this Jesus Christ Superstar production at the big theater, because first, the influence of playing with a big orchestra, the sound, I don't know if you ever played with a big orchestra. When you're sitting inside a big orchestra, the sound is intense. It's so different than playing to a band. And then playing with a conductor. We never played with a conductor before. The funny thing is, to make the story short, Andy was playing in our hometown at the theater. They asked him to play at the Rocky Horror Show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was the
crazy.
start of Andy's career at the theater. And because they knew Vanden Plas, and the people at the theater in Kaiserslautern, they said, we need somebody crazy and somebody where the people like to look at. Good looking with a lot of attraction, and we need somebody like that for the Rocky. And then somebody said, there's a singer of a band called Vanden Plas. He's looking good and he's an active guy and he can sing good. He's not, but Andy never acted before. They just asked him because he was the singer of a band. And then he was playing the Rocky, and somebody of the theater in Saarbrücken, which is the next bigger town, they saw him and they asked him if he want to play a character in Jesus Christ Superstar. And so he said, sure, why not? And so he was going there to play that. And the conductor, who is responsible for the whole music thing, they were talking about, we need a band who can play a good rock sound, but we don't have one. And Andy, he just said, my band can do it. Can you imagine a normal rock band? And he said, I have a band, they can play it. We never played with the orchestra before. Normally, you have to study that. Normally you have to study guitar, you have to study drums, you have to study how to work with a conductor. You can't just go there and play with a big orchestra. And Andy said, they can play it. So crazy. And then the conductor said, okay, can I hear the band? And Andy said, yeah, sure. We make a rehearsal. You are invited to come to see the band, and you can take a look if you like it. If you imagine that it's like in a movie, but in an unreal movie, because normally if you tell this story to somebody in Hollywood, they would say, that's overdone, that's too much. That never happens like that. Yeah. And for Vanden Plas, it happens. So the conductor was coming with somebody from the business side, from the theater, because the theater is a huge, huge thing. A lot of money is inside of the theater. It's so important for the culture in an area. So it's not possible to make a mistake there, because then you are... then it's in the newspaper everywhere. So a theater is in Germany a very, very big thing and very important. So the conductor was coming with somebody from the business side from the theater, and we discussed before, what shall we play? And we said, we just play our own songs. That's it. We can't play something else. And then the only cover song we played was from Queensryche, if I remember right, Best I Can.
Really?
Because
interesting.
Yeah, because in Best, maybe I think you know this. You know everything.
Queensryche is my favorite band, so I know it.
Yeah. So the beginning is this not the measure is not like a 4/4 beat. It's I don't know the real expression, but it's not a steady groove.
Yeah.
So and we wanted to show that we are able to play technical stuff or stuff which is not used being played by rock band. And somehow the conductor was so impressed by our sound and by our playing. And he said, are you able to play notes from a sheet? And we said, yes, sure. Even not everybody was really prepared for that. So we could, but we were not perfect because we were not studied. And he said, I'm so impressed by your sound. You got the job. And we said, what does it mean? Yeah, we have rehearsals in whatever, I don't know, maybe it was like 2 months later. You got the notes, you have to prepare yourself, and then you will come to the theater in the big rehearsal room, and we study the songs together with a big orchestra. And, in first place, we didn't realize what that means, because you have no clue what's going on. And then we were driving to the big theater, and the rehearsal room was so huge you can't imagine, because you have to think about that there are like 30, 40 musicians need space to sit and to listen to the conductor. And we were sitting there, and then the conductor we prepared our, the keyboard, stamp, the bass, the drums, and all these things. And the studied musicians were looking at us because we were young guys with long hair. And then the conductor was coming and said, "Hi, everybody. This is the band who's playing Jesus Christ Superstar." And the studied musicians said, "Oh, hello." They were real nice to us. And then it was like in the movie. Then the conductor, he raised his arm with this pen, this white pen, what conductors have.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, "Okay, we start at song whatever." I think it was song 7 or 8 in the middle of the notes. And then he just moved his arm and we started to playing from 1 second to the other with a big orchestra. If you describe it, it's not that unreal how it was. After the rehearsal, nobody could realize in first place what was happened, because as an unexperienced band playing with an orchestra, Jesus Christ Superstar, this was unbelievable. And we had such a huge success there because we were well prepared. We could play the stuff without a problem. And we got a very good sound as a band because we were playing as a band together since already almost 10 years. So we were used to play live. And then we got first, as I said, a lot of influence from the music side, and we earned a lot of money these days as musicians. And with this money, we were able to produce Color Temple, which was the first edition was a self-production, like the Fire EP. So we paid Color Temple all of our pocket. We didn't have a record deal. Later on, we got a record deal with Color Temple, but first we produced it.
And that again, Color Temple, that was done back again with Robert from Roko, correct?
Yeah. We recorded it there, like the Fire EP. When the CD was recorded, we were going to a factory and we did again. The first edition was, I think, like 1,000 CDs, which had a real simple cover. And with this CD, the whole story from Vanden Plas started, because it was a real CD with 9 songs, a full-length CD. And then we were going much more into the Vanden Plas style. We had songs on it like Soul Survives and Father, which we played for years, and How Many Tears, which is still a live fave from a lot of fans.
Mm-hmm.
And we had My Crying, which was a really kind of, we had this where all these progressive elements showed up for the first time. And then we had a German record company called Dream Circle. And when they heard this self-production, they said, "We will release this CD like an official CD from our record label." And then it started. And then after Color Temple, which was a mix between melodic rock and progressive rock, we wrote new songs for the next CD, for the goth thing. And this was much more getting into the progressive scene and music with Rainmaker and You Fly and all this music. That was the starting point for, let's say, the style which we have till today.
Yeah, that's very true. And in between, you skipped something, which was the Occult CD. And I want to ask you about that one, because I remember I originally bought that as a 2 CD pack. It had Color Temple and Occult as the second CD. And I remember putting it on, not having looked at the track list. And at the time, I didn't know your guys' early stuff. I knew from the God Thing onward. And so I'm listening to Occult, and up comes a cover of Spanish Rain from Saigon Kick. Yeah. How did you guys come to cover that song?
A lot of funny things. So a lot of things with Vanden Plas happened by coincidence. We had a very big French record company, and the guy was really well known for being the best label manager in France. Everybody knew him, and he was very full of energy for his bands. And if you got the chance to get a record deal at his label, that's the best what you could get in France. And we got it because he was a huge fan of the Color Temple CD. And he got the idea to invite us to play acoustic sets in bigger record stores. So the idea was we should play in a record store, but not with our regular set. And he asked us if we could play stuff in acoustic way. And that's what we did. So we sat down and we figured out which songs are able to be played with acoustic guitar from Vanden Plas. So we tried with not only acoustic guitar, but with, piano and a smaller drum kit and all these things. And we didn't have enough songs to play like a 60-minute set just with songs of our own. And so we sat down and discussed songs which could fit to our set list and which could fit to Vanden Plas and to Andy's voice, and which are a bit outside the regular common rock music. And I'm pretty sure that Andy came up with Saigon Kick because he was a huge fan of this band these days. And yeah, it was a perfect song for Vanden Plas because Andy was able to sing it very well. It was a cool song for his voice. And beside that, we had, wait, now I try to remember because you in advance, you know it, but I have to remember. I know that we played Marillion, Kaylee, and we played Georgia on My Mind. Unbelievable. It's a style which is so far away from Vanden Plas as it could be. But we liked to do it, and we played one song in French, with French vocals, the Eau de Bas, because Andy is able to sing in French language, and the people in France, they totally liked it if a band which is not from France sings a song in French. That was pretty cool. It's like, to honor the country, So we had this song, and I think maybe that was the cover versions we did. So when we did it, we found out the people were so crazy about it. They said it's the first time they heard a band playing live this kind of music, but with acoustic guitar, and that we played covers was even more unusual. And they liked it so much that our label manager from France said, you have to record these songs for EP. It's so funny. And so we were going to Roko and another studio. I don't remember. I think it was in 2 studios. And we said, okay, let's try to make a good arrangement of these songs. And so we have a kind of product, what we could, it was not like a big financial success. It was more like an advertisement thing.
For sure, something you send to other labels and record station or radio stations, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it was something unusual, and the people were started talking about. We didn't thought that the people like it that much, but at these days, for the fans, a lot of fans were not able to see bands at normal rock shows, and then a band appears in a record store and plays acoustic song. We had a show in Paris in the biggest record store. And the store was packed, I think, with maybe 1,000 people.
Wow.
Between 800 and 1,000 people just for our acoustic show. The people were standing till outside the streets, and it was crazy. The people said it's so crazy. And we had a funny story is we played it in another store in France, which was not that big. It was like the stores have like a special room for special events where maybe like 200 people could fit in. And we played a show like 60 minutes with the covers, with a fantastic atmosphere. Because the atmosphere was the special thing, because you were like 2 meters away from your fans. So you were close, face to face. It's so intimate. So, because the atmosphere, we did it sometimes with low light and like candles, so to get this kind of atmosphere. And the people liked it so much. And one day we played the show, and it was a huge, huge success. And the people were then leaving the room, and then the label manager was coming inside to us, and they said, I have a question. Outside the room, there are another more 200 people who were not able to see you because the place was packed. And he asked us, can you do the same again? And we said, what do you mean? You play the whole show again because the people would like to see you. And if you do that, they will love you. And then we said, okay, open the door. We play the same show again. And so we played the same. We played 2 shows. The label manager, he was going outside and telling the people, okay, don't worry. They play another show just for you. The crowd was getting crazy. And it was one of the best concerts we ever had because the people thought they were not able to see us, and they were sad and very sad. And then the label manager told them, come in. They played a second show just for you. I think the expression is like priceless. You have these stories like once in a lifetime, it's priceless. And if you remember it, you got goosebumps because it's so special.
Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine that, playing a whole show and then someone being like, well, there's a bunch of people who didn't see it. Can you do it again?
Yeah.
Now, did you guys do that, like this tour? Did you intersperse it with proper full Vanden Plas shows, or did you just do an entire tour, like maybe a record store a day or something?
We did, I think we did 1 or 2 tours where we did especially only like 1 or 2 weeks just driving around in France and playing the bigger stores. So, but we had also on some tours in France, it was like that. You have like a kind of day off when bands are playing. As we were well known in France for playing acoustic shows, sometimes we had regular shows the day before and the day after, and in between, we had concert promoters who asked us, can you make a kind of acoustic show on your day off? And we said, well, why not? So we played also acoustic shows in between regular shows. Not that often, but it happened. But the things, if you prepare a regular show, then you have to rehearse your normal stuff. So you need the time to rehearse also the acoustic stuff. In these days, we were young guys, we were students, we had the time. I think today it would not have been possible to do that. But as you asked me, I'm lying because we did it. I just remember because we played at the Prog Power in the USA in Atlanta, and there we did it. We played on Thursday or Friday, I don't remember, the regular rock show at the main stage.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day we played an acoustic show.
Up in the loft.
Yeah, at the same venue, but in another place.
What's funny, I must have missed you guys that year. I've been to Prog Power about 4 or 5 times. And I just saw, funny enough, Jason Bieler of Saigon Kick do an acoustic show
cool.
on the Saturday after his main set with Jeff Scott Soto. How funny is that, eh? Small world.
Yeah, we did it. And I can remember when we played there, I think we played Locomotive Breath from Jethro Tull, for example.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and we played, oh my God. If I think about it, I don't get it. So I don't talk about it. And if I don't talk about it, I will remember what else we have played. It was from very well-known pop band. So we played different songs than we played before. We have never played before, but I don't remember.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. So tell me this. So you guys worked with, for your third full length, Far Off Grace, you guys worked with Dennis Ward.
Sure.
Tell me about working with him. Obviously, that was, I think, your first major change for studios, going from, Roko Studios.
Yeah, it was like that when we were getting a bit more famous with Vanden Plas. Then our French label manager, he said, okay, you're getting bigger and bigger, because I was doing the kind of management, let's call it like that, but I'm a musician, not a manager. And he said, you need a manager. It's not possible anymore that I call Stephan at home. And then we managed by Bottom Row, and they were the management at these days.
With Costa, the drummer of Pink Cream.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Costa was a very important person for us at these days. And they got Gotthard. Today they are doing again Halloween, Pink Cream 69 and all these bands. And so we were signed by Bottom Row. That was the name of the company. And when we were signed by Bottom Row, we were looking for a new studio, like a new company. You have to do something new. And they said we have a good studio near the town where they live. They are from Karlsruhe, bigger town in Germany.
How far would that be from where you're at in Germany?
Oh, not that far,
not that far.
100 miles.
Oh, that's not bad.
So it's not that much. But it was a very big studio, and we said, okay, but who can help us to record the CD? And he said, let's try to do it with Dennis. He's engineering, producing Pink Cream 69 and a lot of other stuff. And that we didn't know each other before, but we trusted Bottom Row, and so we recorded Far Off Grace there. Far Off Grace has a kind of unique sound compared to the other CDs. You can hear that we were somewhere else and that somebody else was engineering the CD. It sounds a bit more harsh, if I have the right word. Yeah, the guitar sound is a bit more high end with a bit more with a lot of presence and all that. So it's different to the God thing. and it's different to Beyond Daylight, for example.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you my favorite Vanden Plas CD, but Far Off Grace is definitely up there. That was my proper introduction to you guys, was Far Off Grace.
Yeah, I'm still a fan from a lot of songs of Far Off Grace. For example, Far Off Grace was, funny enough, Far Off Grace on CD, it's a really prog song, but we were able to play the song as an acoustic song. I always say, if a song is really good, you are able to play it as a prog song and as an acoustic song. So, and Far Off Grace, for example, I can play Far Off Grace just with Andy on vocals. So if a song has good melodies and good harmonies and good structures, then I say, then you can play it as an acoustic song. That means sometimes for me, what is a good song if you can play it in different versions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and on Far Off Grace, we have a lot of songs we played live for years, like I Can See, what is a lot of times the opener of our concerts. Then we had Into the Sun, what is really cool groove song. We had Far Off Grace and Iotic. I'm a big fan of, not because I wrote it, but Iotic Rain is a very, very cool song.
That's my favorite Vanden Plas song.
Really?
That was my introduction. And when I was a kid discovering you, that was one of the first things I downloaded on Napster because I thought it sounded cool.
I still remember when I wrote Iotic Rain. When I was not studying music, I was studying kind of biology, a mix between biology and geography. That was I'm studying what I have studied. And the funny thing is, I was at the university. Maybe I have to admit that I was not the best student in this kind of with biology because my head was always full of music. And I was sitting in when the teacher, it's not a teacher at the university. I don't know the English word for the
professor.
Yeah. He was talking about this and that, and I was sitting there dreaming about music and dreaming and had this da 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 da. That was coming in my mind from 1 second to the other, and I wrote it down in my book, the rhythm, so that I don't forget it. And I wrote down how I could imagine how it could sound. And I wrote down the chords, because I had no guitar with me. So I wrote it down. And after the lesson was the lesson was over with the professor, I was driving home, get my guitar and played da 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 da, and that was the starting point of Iotic Rain. It's so funny, and I had all these chord progressions I had in my mind, and I was driving home, and I thought, oh, hopefully I don't forget, because that's another thing. What I always say: if you have an idea, and the idea is good, you never forget it.
Yep.
You wake up in the middle of the night, you have an idea. You sleep. If you wake up the next day and you remember the idea, then it's a good idea. You know, things like that. And I was driving home, get my guitar, and then I wrote Iotic Rain. So that's how I spent my time at the university.
That's funny. I've done that so many times myself, where you're sitting there and you've got an idea and it's like, oh no, I'm going to forget this. Write it down. Like, even, like you say, you're trying to think in your head, okay, it'd probably be D, then G, and then I go up to this, and, and you're trying to, and then you pick up a guitar and you realize you're only half right from what you thought you were doing.
I had, normally, I say, if a good idea is a good idea and you remember the next day, but for example, with a postcard to God. So that idea I had in the middle of the night, I was waking up and I had the idea for the main riff, and it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the night, and I stood up and my wife said, "Hey, Stephan, what are you doing?" And I said to my wife, "Go on sleeping. I have an idea. I have to figure it out." And my music room is just on the opposite of our sleeping room. And I was going there from 3 to 4, and I was composing Postcard to God, like 1 hour. And then, but I didn't record it. And I composed it, and it was like 1 hour. And I said, if I remember it tomorrow, what I composed in this hour in the middle of the night, then I know it's a really good song. And I was going back to bed after 1 hour, and my wife said, "Stephan, you are crazy. What have you done?" And I said, "I wrote a song. And that's my profession." And she said, "Yeah, I know, but in the middle of the night." And I said, "Yeah, but when I got the idea, I have to use it." And so the next day I was getting up, I remembered it, and so we had Postcard to God. Same stories.
Yep, it's funny. Most of the songs I've written in my life have been written that way, where it's like late at night and you're falling asleep and suddenly a melody hits you or something hits you and you're like, I need to record that now. That's it. So we've talked about some of the producers, and now we're finally, I would consider this sort of the start of modern Vanden Plas. You guys did The Spirit of Live, and as far as I know, that was done in France, correct?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Would you say France is probably your biggest country that you guys play? Like, is that where you have the most fans, or would it be Germany or even somewhere else?
I think in the days of like God Thing and Color Temple, these things, then France was maybe our biggest market. Yeah. The thing is, like coincidence, the same thing with Spirit of Life, a German radio station was asking if they could broadcast a live show from us in Germany when we play in France. And we didn't thought about recording live CD, but when we did it and we did recording, then we thought about doing that. So it was just because the radio station asked us for this live broadcast. So it's the same like a coincidence. They asked us and then we did it. And then we got a result where we never had thought about before. Then again, with the Spirit of Life, our French label manager, Olivier Garnier, and I never said his name before, so now I have to say his name because he was a really cool guy. And he said, because he knew I'm so huge Dokken fan, and Dokken was, these days, I think he had Dokken on his label somewhere, but he was in contact with him. And he said, Stephan, if you play the show in France, why don't we play a song from Dokken and we invite Don Dokken to sing it? And I said, you are kidding, because I'm a huge Dokken fan. And he said, yeah, if you play a song, then I asked Don Dokken. And that's what he did. And that's the way how Don Dokken is singing on our live CD. I said immediately, we have to search a song which fits to Vanden Plas, where we could do some new arrangements that is a bit more proggy. And Kiss of Death was perfect for that. And that's why Kiss of Death is also, we did Kiss of Death as a special edition, as a bonus track. And when Don Dokken heard it, he said, cool version. And I was so proud. You have no idea. You have no idea. I was so proud because we met Don Dokken before the show for common interview for, I think it was Rock Hard France for Big Magazine. And he was very gentle, very kind. We had to, it was not like the big rock star and then the small German guys. He know that he's a famous guy, but he was very kind, and it was very cool to have him on stage there. Beside that, we have Patrick Rondat, which is a fantastic guitar player, very well known in France, a very kind person, friend of the band. So it was a very special concert to have these two guys on stage. Very cool CD, because this CD is not overproduced like live CDs are today. It's just how we played at these days.
Yeah, it's a proper live album.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not done with thousands of overdubs and all these things. It's like maybe live CDs were done in the 80s. Like Unleashed in the East from Judas Priest.
Well, that one was unleashed in the studio, or at least part of it.
Yeah, I was joking. I know. I was joking. No, but you know what I mean? I need to make this joke. No, it's like a regular live CD. I think that's what you hear when you listen to the CD. You can feel the live atmosphere really well.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, you can tell if the band went in and fixed up everything and auto-tuned all the vocals and all the rest of it. It's like, I mean, there are some bands that are incredible live, but it's really hard to pull off perfection live. I mean, well, it's music. I don't think there really is perfection in music, but you know what I mean? It's like you can tell when someone's doctored it just a bit too much.
Yeah, but the music industry and the bands, they pulled themselves into the situation because with all the possibilities you have in the studio, you are able to produce a product which sounds perfect at the end, which wasn't perfect in the beginning. And the problem is, if you are a very good band and you release a CD with maybe small mistakes, and then there is maybe a band which is not good at all live and has a perfect live CD, the people, they don't ask themselves why it is like that. They say, this band sounds perfect and this band has mistakes. Because they don't think about how much work they put into this live product after it's recorded. And I don't know a good expression. It's like we say the bands itself have to fight against the ghosts that they called.
You've set your expectations way too high.
If you understand what I mean.
That you can't possibly meet without technology.
Yeah. there was a time I can remember when live CDs were coming, were released, they sounded as perfect as a studio CD. And this is not possible. That's not possible. Maybe there are some bands who can do it. But honestly, I think every band plays some slight mistakes when they play live.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
so.
As a singer, it's impossible to be perfect live. You can't do it with breathing, this song that I did in the studio and took me 20 takes of repeating the same line, I'm going to go do it perfect? No, there's always going to be something you're going to do wrong or different.
That's what I mean. And if one band started to make a perfect live CD, the second band starts, oh God, if we don't do it like that, everybody thinks we are a bad live band. And so the circle starts that every band has to sound perfect. And then the band started using backing tracks, using PCs, having complete orchestra on, for sure, when we play live with Vanden Plas and we have a song with a big orchestra, we use also samples. That's not a secret. That's because
you have to. You can't bring a 50-piece orchestra with you.
But for me, it's a big difference if you use kind of orchestra elements where it's obvious that you don't have an orchestra, or if you hear a band with one guitar player, but you hear a rhythm track, a solo, and a second voice on the solo, and then I think, oh, that's maybe a bit too much. That's the point where I think to have two guitars or whatever, I think it's not a problem to have other instruments running. You could also use a guitar running in the back. If a band likes to do it, it's okay. But you have to take care that it's not too obvious and too much. That's the point. If you hear musicians which are not on stage, that's a thing when I think, okay, maybe that's too much.
Yeah. So talking about Spirit of Live, if I'm not mistaken, that was where you guys first started working with Markus Teske, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did he just come recommended as someone to record it, or did you already know him by that point as an engineer?
Andy knew him because Andy was working with another band together, and they were recording in his studio. And when we were talking about this live recording, Andy said, this guy is very talented. He's a very cool guy. He is very patient, what is very necessary if you work with Vanden Plas, honestly.
Yeah.
So, and that was, he said, we try to work with this guy and then we will see how it works. And from the beginning, it was wonderful working with Markus because he's a great musician. He's very patient and he understands how musicians act because he's a musician himself, but he's like you wish you like to have somebody in the studio. You need somebody like him. And I think the experienced engineers, producers, they have a kind of same way of acting, being calm, thinking about things, not getting loud or too much discussion. He knows what we need. And if you describe him, what you need for a sound and this and that, 1 minute later on, you got it. That's the point.
Yeah. So at this point, he's almost probably become like another member of the band, especially when it comes to recording.
Yeah.
So tell me about this, stepping away from Vanden Plas in, I think it was about 2001 or so, you guys did the Missa Mercuria album, which to me, almost it's a rock opera, so it's right up your guys' alley. But to me, it was almost like Vanden Plas meets like DC Cooper's solo album in a way. How did that album come together?
Yeah, but this was, we were not responsible for Missa Mercuria. It was like that, that a woman was getting in contact, which was a big fan of bands like Pink Cream and DC Cooper and Vanden Plas. She was getting in contact with Bottom Row, where Costa was working. Or is working.
That explains why all those bands are on it then.
Yeah. She wanted to she had this story of Missa Mercuria. She had this whole story. And she wanted to have this story with rock music. And somehow she was getting in contact with Bottom Row. And she asked, I need bands or songwriters who are able, and singers who are able to transport my story into rock music. And so she was getting in touch with Costa. And so Costa was responsible for the whole project. And then Costa started to, collect the main songwriters of the bands which were at bottom row, which makes sense because he was the manager of these bands. Yeah, but he knew that the songwriters fit together very well from the different bands. It was me, Günter, it was Koffel from Pinking 69, it was Alex Bayroth.
Oh, yeah.
You know him from Sinner.
From a million things, yeah.
From a million bands,
Primal
yeah.
Fear and so many
Great
others.
guitar player. He's from our area. I know him, so he's a cool guy and a very good guitar player.
I've been trying to get him for an interview for years, so I'm hoping that'll happen at some point.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a cool guy. And so we were not responsible for the whole CD. So Costa was talking about the songs, about the themes, and then he divided the songs to the different songwriters. He said, for example, to me, Stephan, I'm pretty sure you're the right guy to write the instrumental opener for this CD, for example, and things like that. So he was the producer of the whole CD. So it seems like it's something which is very related to Vanden Plas because it's a rock opera. But this one thing was not made from Vanden Plas.
Yeah, it's connected. It's worth checking out if you're a fan. But yeah, it's not quite a Vanden Plas album. That's for sure.
Yeah, but it seems a bit because Andy's also singing on one song, but it's not a Vanden Plas production.
So another band you did as well is the Consortium Project, working with Ian Perry.
Yeah.
You've done, what, is it 4 records with him now?
Oh, maybe 4 or 5. He asked me like 2 years ago. He asked me to play some songs for his last CD. So maybe 4, maybe 5 could be. Yeah, it was one day. His friend, or was Henk van der. Sorry if I got his family name. He contacted me, I think by email or somehow. And he said that his friend Ian Perry likes to do a side project beside Elegy, and if I like to write songs and play guitar on that. And I didn't know Ian in person. They invited me for a concert in Germany where they played. I think Elegy played together with with Camelot. I think they were on tour with Camelot. And so they invited me, and that's what the first time where I met Ian, who is such a crazy funny English guy. It was so funny because he's not that tall. No, he's just like, his head is up to my shoulders. That's it. And I was standing in front of him, and he was like he always said the small English guy and his big German friend. So it was very funny. So, but we got from the beginning, we got a very good connection. You can't imagine how loud he can sing. Unbelievable. Such a small person with such a great voice. He's a great singer. Unbelievable.
Like Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah. I just want to say it. The same thing. I met Ronnie James Dio once. I got the chance to go backstage in Monsters of Rock in 1990 in Germany. And there was... in the hotel later on, there was like Ronnie James Dio, the guys from the Johansson, the keyboard, and from Accept, and a lot of musicians. And just by coincidence, I was standing beside Ronnie James Dio. And I was more than surprised how small he was. He was like a child from the body. His chest, he was so small. But if we imagine how he was singing, unbelievable. It was crazy. So, and even I didn't talk to him. Everybody says Ronnie James Dio was so kind. And I just can say yes. He was so kind to every person in the whole backstage area from the hotel. Unbelievable. Such a nice person. I think compared to his success, unbelievable. Unbelievable, nice. Even I haven't talked to him, but when I looked at him and I see how he acted to other persons, unbelievable. So sad that he passed away years ago because I was a huge fan of Dio, huge fan. Vivian Campbell, the first 2 Dio CDs. Oh, crazy. And, but saying that, Ian, we get in contact. He visited me at home. We recorded some stuff, and then we had the first Consortium Project, and then he directly wanted to make a tour. So we were going on tour with Patrick Rondin on guitar, and Günther was playing keyboards, Patrick Gears was playing bass, and Dirk Brunberg from Elegy was playing the drums. Very good band. We had only one tour, but we did a lot of CDs together. He's a very good musician, and Ian is a very good musician and a very cool guy. I like him very much. Ian is a very good songwriter. So it's incredible how much he invested in music and how less success he had if compared to other persons. With all his talent, normally he should have been a well-known singer in a well-known band. But that's how it is.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. No, you could have the most talented person on the world, and it just comes down to luck and exposure.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I mean, there's another lifetime where, you know, Vanden Plas is just a group of friends playing in your basement, you know, and never had the success you guys had, you know, so.
Yeah, maybe.
So let's dive in now to the brand new record that you have, Eerie Monsters, from your new band, All My Shadows. Yeah. You know, I've been playing it in my car for the last couple of weeks, and I've got to say, you've got a really special record here. Like, I don't think you can escape the comparisons to Vanden Plas. You've got 3/5 of the band, and you know, I mean, I think anything with you and Andy on vocals is just going to be in that sort of realm of Vanden Plas. But at the same time, it's not Vanden Plas.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If I had to describe it, I'd say it was something like you took Vanden Plas and sort of stripped out the opera prog parts while keeping a little bit in there. And then sort of injected some 80s in there. That's how I would describe the record.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that description? You think I'm totally off base?
I take it for our description for the band. It's exactly right. I'm a big fan, as you can imagine, and we talked about John Sykes in these times. Whitesnake, I'm a big fan of Dokken, House of Lords these days. And I write stuff for Vanden Plas, and I write stuff for the rock operas, and I write also songs for other bands. But I also had songs which had this feeling of the 80s. And someday I thought I have written some songs where I thought they are pretty cool. If we make a kind of modern production, a powerful production, it has the atmosphere of the 80s, but the sound of today. That was my goal somehow. And then a lot of things happened. I talked to Frontiers. Then I got this idea. Then I thought, maybe it's the right time to think about this idea, because I wanted to make that for a long time. And I thought, now I have the right songs together. And first I wanted to do it with different singers. But at these days, a lot of guitarists made it to invite a lot of singers. And I thought, I don't want to be number 50 who does this kind of project. And I asked Andy in first place to write the lyrics for the CD and to sing one or two songs, but to invite other singers, because they are really good singers. We wanted to make a demo for Frontiers to see if they want to do it and to release the CD. And when Andy did the demo with 4 songs, we were so convinced that Andy is the right person to do it, because it felt so natural when he sang all the songs. And I said to Andy, why should we make a project with different singers if you make it perfect? It makes no sense to search other singers. That doesn't mean that I don't like the other singers, but it makes no sense. And then we sent the demo to Frontiers, and I told them that I changed my mind regarding the CD with different singers. I want to do it with Andy, and they heard the songs and they liked it. What was perfect. And so, from one second to the other, it was a kind of not a real project. We were working together again. And then we decided, if we are doing this, like we both are doing this band, why shouldn't we try to make a real band out of it? And I asked Markus and my brother, and I asked Frank Rummler, the bass player, and everybody said directly, great idea. They said it's a cool idea. They heard the songs. They said they liked the songs. So then we decided to make the whole CD with this lineup. And like you said, it's like, Vanden Plas also has this kind of 80s elements maybe, but it's more hidden in the background. And we have much more this technical stuff. And with this, All My Shadows, the thing was, if the song is finished after 4 minutes, it's finished. And if I was satisfied with the song and there was no need to add something, then it was okay. The cool thing is that, let's say I have now with the rock opera and Vanden Plas and with All My Shadows, I have like more different playgrounds where I think that I directly feel if the song is for Vanden Plas or the rock operas or for All My Shadows. And all these songs, what I had, for All My Shadows, maybe if I would have spent a lot of time and I would add some extra stuff and parts to them, maybe some of them, 2 or 3, could have been also Vanden Plas songs.
For sure.
But maybe it would feel maybe a bit unnatural, because maybe you would hear that I forced myself to put some other parts into this song, so it gets like an 8-minute rock song. And I wanted to avoid that. I said to myself, no, if the song is like Phantoms of the Dawn, it's a real cool song. And I got the feeling it's cool. It has like 3 or 4 riffs. That's it. A solo to it, just with a harmony change. And then it's cool. And that was the way how I acted with these songs. If I was fine and satisfied with the songs, then I stopped it and I gave it to Andy. For sure, we worked on the songs again when we started working with the vocals on it. But basically, the demos are like 95% like you hear now on CD. It's with Vanden Plas, it's the same. When I do a Vanden Plas demo, it's and you compare it, then it's the same thing. That it sounds, the demo sounds from the length and from everything like the CD, but not sounding as good.
Yeah. So how then do you get Frankie from, Michael Schenker and all the stuff he's done? How does he become involved with this? Is he just an old friend you just happen to call up?
Yeah, he's living in our area, like 50 miles away. So we know him because we know him from early days. He was playing in a very well-known German band in the 80s. And
what band was it?
Lancelot. Yeah, Lancelot.
Okay, I've heard of them. Yeah. I don't know them to any great degree, but I've heard of them.
Yeah. And we had, in the end of the 80s, we had a problem when we had a very important concert that our bass player left the band just a few days before the show. And my brother, Andreas, he knew Frankie from a band called Breakpoint. They were famous to play because we have a lot of Americans in our area, we had a lot of clubs where the bands were playing cover songs. This was very famous at these days. And Lancelot were doing also kind of cover music and own music. And he was very famous in our area. And my brother said, okay, there's only one bass player in our area who is able to learn our songs in 5 days and who is a good bass player. And so he called him and explained the situation. And we said, okay, we pay you something. Can you learn our songs? And in 5 days, it's the concert. And he's a professional guy. He said, just send me the songs on tape these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah. And and then he was coming. We were rehearsing and he helped us out for a few concerts till we got another bass player. So we know him since the end of the 80s. And we had the same problem in 2016 when Thorsten, our bass player, was not able to play some shows. Then he was helping us out for some shows. So we know each other for more than 30 years. He's a cool guy. I mean it in a very good way. He's an old school bass player.
Mm-hmm.
If he plays the 8 notes, with the drummer, then you got the feel, somebody's grooving with the bass. It sounds like bass.
Yeah.
And so we got to lose contact with Frank over all the years. And I called Frank and said, Frank, I want to make a new band like this 80s music. And I wanted to ask you. And he said, I'm with you. I'm playing with you. So he was directly after, I think haven't finished the sentence. And he said, yeah, because we like each other. We know that we have the feeling for this music. And and I was really happy that he joined the band directly.
Yeah, it's funny on this album, you guys kind of have two sort of people who are a part of Vanden Plas's history, but not in the band until now kind of thing, Yeah,
it's same with Markus. I know, the decision was very easy. I needed a good keyboard player. I said it in another interview, playing with this lineup makes everything so easy because you don't have to explain too much. You give the songs to the people and they know directly what they have to do. And that makes everything so easy for the production because directly it will sound good. If Andreas, my brother, is one of the best rock drummer in Germany. So he grew up with this kind of music. He's a big fan of Alex Van Halen, for example. So I know that he can play prog rock, but he can play the, let's say, simple 80s rock, the same thing. So I knew the drum is perfect. With Frankie, I was sure I got one of the best German bass players for this kind of music. And with Markus, everybody knows how good he is with productions and keyboards. So Yeah, sometimes it's a hard fight to get a good lineup, and I'm happy that it was kind of easy for me.
Yeah, I've got to say, I mean, I've known for many years what a great engineer Markus is. I mean, your albums ever since he came on board have all sounded incredible. But I was shocked at just what an incredible keyboard player he is.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's also good, very good piano player with classical stuff.
That's crazy. So I'll ask you this. Do you have any insights into any of the songs on the album? Like, is there a song maybe that felt really special to you doing it? Like, one song that stuck out to me was the title track, Eerie Monsters. I thought it had kind of like an Aussie Deep Purple vibe. And as soon as I thought that, the song just, it instantly grabbed me.
Yeah. Eerie Monsters may be the song which goes the most in the direction of Vanden Plas, of the structure and the riffs and all these things. But on the other side, it sounds somehow old-fashioned. Not in a bad way, but old-fashioned in the kind of how the song was written. And I mean, maybe I can explain it with when I played the solo. This is so unusual for my style because I played it with a kind of flanger effect, what I normally don't use. And the way how the solo is played is really old-fashioned for my way of playing. But I thought it's perfect for Eerie Monsters. And one part of the song, the verses, is in my head for many, many years. And I never was able before to finish or to use this part because I never had the right song for it. And when I had I started with this intro riff, this da 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 da, so and so on and so on. And when I was finished with that riff, I thought, okay, how to move on with the verses. And then it came in my mind years ago, many years ago, I had this clean picking thing and I tried it and I recorded it and I thought exactly that's what the song needed. Some kind of, let's say old fashioned picking and all these things, but to the song, it fits. And then the thing with the chorus, it's a very huge chorus. It's strange. You can't. Normally, I'm a fan of writing a song in 1 or 2 days. The most songs I write in 1 or 2 days, everything, the basic things, and then I make all the arrangements. I don't like to write on songs like I have a part, and 2 months later I have another part, and next year I have the next part. Most of the songs are written in 1 or 2 days, even the prog songs. But here, with this Eerie Monster, this was something special because I used a part which I had in my mind for many, many, many years. So maybe that makes the sound special somehow. It's an explanation, but I'm not sure if it's the right explanation. But
sure,
it's maybe an explanation.
I've done that with songs myself where, like you say, some songs write themselves in 20 minutes. Others take you maybe a day or, a part of a day. Yeah, I've done that with songs where literally I'll come up with part of a song, and then 2 months later, I remember one day I was going through an old tape of little ideas. I come like, oh, here's a little chord progression. Maybe I'll do something with that one day. Oh, here's a this. Maybe I'll do something with that. And I had over about 5 different sessions, bits and pieces in the same key or a complementing key. And you just go, I should take this part and turn it into the verse of these riffs I've come up with. And, oh, this melody from this idea I had 6 months later fits perfectly, So it sounds like that was kind of how Eerie Monsters came together, right?
Yeah, the funny thing is the song itself, also for Eerie Monsters, are written, most of the stuff is written new. New means like 2 or 3 years because you can't write a CD just 1 month before you record it. So you need like 2 years.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that this time I had not a lot of parts, but I think I have like 3 or 4 parts which are like 20 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which I remembered, not for the whole song, but some special parts, shorter parts where I remembered, and I was going to my old PC to find the old songs because I had this riff in my mind. And I had to go to my old PC and put it back to the monitor so I can look at it. And funny enough that like 3 or 4 things where I checked my old songs from 2000, whatever, 4, I don't know. and I was searching for a special riff, and I found it, and I used it for all my shadows. Not much, but I thought that's funny enough. After 20 years, I remember this riff, and it fits to the CD which I produce now. Strange. Sometimes it happens like that.
It had a rebirth. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, are there plans for you guys to tour with All My Shadows?
Hard. Because we now we will have to start the recordings for the next Vanden Plas CD. So that's one point. We have some theater productions coming, but we have to do till summer. Corona hadn't made it easier for us, for all artists. So you have less clubs where you can play. And if you have clubs, you have like 100 bands who want to play at one date in this club. So that's a problem
for sure
to get good clubs, which fits to All My Shadows, because we are not a well-known band. We are somehow newcomers, even we are experienced musicians. We are newcomers. So you can't call a club and say, hi, we are All My Shadows. Do you have a date for me? And they say, yeah, come this Saturday. And we expect like 1,000 people. That doesn't work, because we are, that you have to be realistic. So, I mean, the best would be a good tour where we could play as a support. But the same thing, if a good band is on tour, there are like 100 bands which want to have a good support slot. So it's hard. If we got the chance, the lineup is perfect. So I think we were able to make a good live show. We like to do it. I don't want to say that it doesn't happen, but it's very hard these days.
Yeah, I'm sure, like you say, if you're going to do something, it's going to be with Vanden Plas, where you've already got that name established with it.
Yeah, but it's not. We like to do it. With Vanden Plas, it's the same. When we produce the Vanden Plas CD, we are not able to play live shows because we can do this or that. Playing live shows during the recordings is never a good idea. So talking about that, I know that next month are occupied with Vanden Plas and theater. So if Vanden Plas is finished with the recordings, and Frontiers likes to do a next All My Shadows CD, if it's good for them, if they think it's a kind of success, and then I have to think about starting with the next All My Shadows CD, which is not regarding the songs. It's not the biggest problem, because I started to write songs for the next CD, but it's not sure if there will be a CD. I hope so, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, with Vanden Plas, I know that Gunther left a little while ago. The impression I get is he's out of the band, but kind of not, because you still do like theater things together and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys have a keyboard player, or are you just going to have Markus fill in for this record?
No, Markus is in All My Shadows. So if we would take Markus also for Vanden Plas, I think then the confusion would be too big.
Yeah.
For sure, if we would not have All My Shadows, then the situation what we have now, it would be the natural solution to ask Markus. Yeah, for sure. But he's in All My Shadows, and you can't make two bands with 4 people in the same band. That doesn't. 3 is the limit, maybe. So, for sure, we have to think about a new keyboard player. We worked with Gunnar together at the theater. It was his wish to leave the band. He feels better with the kind of theater stuff he's doing, and with his classical stuff he's doing. And after so many years, for sure, it's a new situation for everybody. But I mean, it's like it is. I think there are not so much band which had a stable lineup. Is this the right word?
Yep.
Yeah. For so many years. Okay, it happened now, but it's okay. We work together in the theater, and we have to find a new keyboarder for the next Vanden Plas CD. That's how it is. For sure, there will be a new influence. We don't want to have a copy. Günther is a great musician, a great keyboarder, but it would make no sense to ask somebody to be a copy of Günther. Not to change everything, but if you have a new musician, then you need to give him the space to show his talent, to show us his energy also for the band. And so saying that, we don't want to change the way how the keyboard sounds in Vanden Plas completely, but we want to give the new member the kind of freedom to express himself without changing the style of Vanden Plas, for sure. It would make no sense. We don't go a different direction now, because I mean, I know this. I wrote all songs for the next CD, so I know how it will sound finally. But I don't want to give the songs to a new keyboard and say, you have to play directly the stuff how I make it on the demo. That makes no sense. First, because if you have a good musician, you have to give him the space to show it. And on the other side, I make demos, but I'm not a keyboard player. So I have a limited range of sounds, in my library, and I have a limited way of how I can produce the keyboards for the demo. But I'm not a keyboard player and I'm not a drummer. I can make the demo. I can make the drum rolls like I feel it, and I can play the rhythm, but I can't make it like a real drummer. So Andreas can do it like a real drummer because he is.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of saying, here's the roadmap. Now we got to figure out how to get there.
Yeah. In easy words. Yeah, in 10 seconds, that what I tried in 2 minutes.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Stephan, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to do this interview. I mean,
longer than expected, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
he has to make 4 times 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I want to thank you for taking the time. And, I'm really, really enjoying the new All My Shadows. I've had it in the car for about the last 2 weeks or so.
Okay. No, it was cool talking to you. Really, I appreciate that very much and appreciate your support. It was fun talking to you. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done it 2 hours. So
that's
cool.
Awesome. All right, Stephan, take it easy. Stay safe out there. And looking forward to what you have coming up next with Vanden Plas.
Okay, friend. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Right. Yep.
Bye-bye.